to this episode of the Listening Detective TV show. I'm really pleased to have the wonderful Belinda Butler from Pizzazz with us today. Welcome, Belinda.
Hello, lovely. Thank you for having me.
So today's subject is about confidence to exercise, but the main thing you're really good at doing is the confidence to look good and feel great, and the exercise and makeup that you do under Pizzazz banner covers both, which we'll come on to in a minute. But the main structure of our show is that we want to find out from you, what is confidence? Confidence for you is like what? Because I'd really just want to compare and contrast with our other guests. That's what you're called, a guest.
Okay.
Our different opinions.
So I've been thinking about this, obviously, when you asked me if I would come onto the show and talk about confidence. And I think that, first of all, my confidence comes when I take action. I'm a very do-it person. And obviously, we've had some examples recently and of when we first went into lockdown last year. And for me, my confidence comes when I trust myself and I just take action. I know I can do it when I've got adrenaline, when I've got the reason to do something. I know I can do it. So I have to trust myself, but I have to act quickly.
So for you, confidence is about trusting and acting, and there's adrenaline. And so where does that confidence come from for you? Is it something you've always had, or is it something you've built up?
No, probably not. I mean, my background is I was a competitive dancer. When I started out, when I was 6 years old, I was very shy. I didn't have a lot of confidence, and I wasn't the person at the front. I wasn't the person performing very naturally. But where every time they put me in a situation where I just had to do it, you know, here's your exam, or here's a competition, or I learned that I just had to do it, because if I just did it, I knew I'd be all right.
So you've got dancing as your background, and you were put into situations, and there's another bit of just do it. So when you did it, you knew you were going to be all right. So now, what's likely to knock your confidence?
What knocks my confidence mostly, and I've been in my headspace quite a lot over this last 10 months. I've been thinking about what spurs me on and what actually deflates me. I'm not great when I compare myself to others. So yeah, if I start comparing myself, if I start looking around me, it's very easy to think that others are doing something better, or they've got better ideas, or they're performing better, or whatever. Whereas if I just keep myself focused and trust myself, I know I can do it.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I didn't sort of mention Belinda's my fitness instructor. So when you do see me out doing boot camp, it's this lady who's yelling in my ear and encouraging me.
Maybe yelling.
You'll be so impressed with me. I was actually saying to Liam this morning when we were doing our 6:30 recording of you, because we couldn't make the 10 o'clock viewing today. I was going, Liam, this is a really good stretch. You'll be impressed. I was calling it a good stretch.
Were you calling it a good stretch?
I was really enjoying it. It's only taken 9 years for me to actually believe that's a really good stretch. But it was one of the things I learned from you, actually, because if you remember when Mark and my husband and I used to come to your circuit training when I very, very first started, is because I'm externally referenced and perhaps I wasn't as focused on what I wanted, I would often measure myself by how fast my husband was going. So if he was going faster and he'd try and beat me all the time because he's quite competitive like that, I'd just go, I'll give up, and I'd stop. And it was meeting you and actually talking to you and saying, you know, how's your head working when you're doing this fitness? You said, I'm just competing with myself. And that, I remember that completely blowing my mind, because I'd only thought of competition as competing with others rather than competing with the version of myself just before, or the last session or whatever it was. And that was a real turning point when I met you. Tell me a bit more about that with fitness. You know, how do actually, let's go back a bit. Let's rewind. So you lose your confidence if you compare yourself to other people. So what's your strategy? What works for you? If you catch yourself where your confidence is when you're not, because you've got into comparing yourself with other people, what works to get you back to being confident?
Yeah, well, I've spent quite a lot of time, Cheryl, over the last 6 months, really, working with you and working with other means and other sources. And what I know works for me is when I develop me. So what I know that works is I know that I'm capable, and if I don't have the skills, I know I can learn them. And I try to, this all sounds a bit corny, really, but I try to be the best version of me. Okay, whether that is in the fitness world, or whether it's in the beauty world, or whether it's I'm trying to encourage someone else. Not only do I want to be the best version of me, but I want other people to be the best version of them. And so that's what I try to set up for my customers is, what do you want to have happen? And that's obviously one of your questions, but what do you want to have happen? And the only person we need to think about is you.
Yeah. So just going back, so when you're developing yourself, and I heard you say, you trust yourself and you've got confidence in yourself and you know that you can learn it. Have you always had that sort of confidence that you could learn something? And I'm just wondering whether that's come from your competitive dancing. Maybe it's given a foundation to...
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's very, very interesting. I would say that I've always been a pretty determined creature. I'd say my natural personality is I'm pretty determined. I do remember a situation where my parents got divorced when I was 13 years old, and my mum actually went to the school to explain to the head teacher that my parents were getting divorced, and to just bear that in mind if my studies or my attitude or something was affected. Now, I don't know how most people would react to that, but how I reacted was I was like, right, well, if you all think I'm going to behave differently just because my parents have got divorced, I'm going to prove to you all that actually nothing's different.
Yeah.
And so I think throughout my life, when I've had a variety of personal challenges, for me, I guess not only do I have to prove to, I don't know if it's I'm proving to everyone else. I think it's more that I have to prove to myself that I'm very capable of learning. And if I don't know how to do something, then I just need to find out.
Yeah. And it's an interesting subject. It's something that hasn't come up before, but I know that when I work with people that are managing their critic, there's tends to be people in the world that, it's not a bit of a generalization, that if someone gets told you can't do that, for some people that's like a red rag to the bull, and they'll go and prove the other person they're wrong. They can. And for other people, they go, oh, okay then. If you say I can't, I can't. And so it's like, and I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? It's finding out, one, the people that go, right, I'm going to do it. And I've definitely learned that from you, being around you, and it's rubbed off on me, because I was definitely the, oh, if you say I can't, I won't kind of person. I'm still, I'm quite driven and determined, but if someone blatantly told me, someone I really respected, that, that's not possible, I probably for a moment might believe it. And I'm being around people like you with that kind of like, I'll show you attitude. I don't like competing with other people, because I used to think, oh, that means someone else has got to lose if I'm winning. And so this kind of like, well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to prove I can, either though that you don't agree, or that don't have that approval maybe that I was looking for. But also there's compete with yourself, get better. As you know, I did have to learn. Like you say to me, well, count how many you did in the last minute. I'm puffing too much to count, and I sure as heck can't remember the next time I'm doing a minute how many I got next time. So I definitely need somebody next to me counting if I've got to measure progress through numbers, not through my breath patterns at the end of it. So tell us a little bit about Pizzazz Me and how you've got into this business, and what would be your tips and strategies, because you've got two sides really to the business, haven't you? The fitness and the beauty. So just tell us a little about your business and how you got into it first, and then I'd like to hear some tips from you on how to stay confident or get confident when it comes to exercise or beauty.
Okay, so I think that, I've been an exercise teacher, Cheryl, as you know. I've been an exercise teacher for 30 years. I have taught classes every week for 30 years, and I've met thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And I've been in the beauty business for 23 years in March. And I have been in those two areas because they're things that interest me. And my circumstances, when I became a single parent, I knew I had to give up my full-time job. And so I chose two areas that I love, and I created a business out of them. So that's the basics. That's the simple stuff, really.
Yeah.
But what I know is that along my journey of life, I know that, you know, life chucks us a few lemons along the way. And what I know is that when I exercise, even if I have to drag myself to exercise, which, believe me, I do sometimes, I know within the first 10 minutes that I feel a shed load better. So what I know, like having confidence about knowing you can learn something or knowing you can achieve it, I know the power of exercise. As soon as I move my body and I put the music on, I'm there within probably less than 10 minutes. I also know that in my times of despair and sadness, and when things in my life weren't going very well, I knew that if I could put my face on and I could do my nails and I could get dressed up and I could just, you know, I love that saying, fake it till you make it. But sometimes you do actually have to take on the persona of the person that you need to be, even when life isn't making you feel like you want to be that person.
Yeah.
So the two things for me were, one was getting myself to teach a class and physically moving my body. I love music. I love moving to music. And I knew that that could help me shake things off. And secondly, if I could create an image of myself, I could put a little, I'm not a massive makeup wearer, even though I work in cosmetics. I like makeup and I like it when it makes you just feel better. I like clothes. I'm a real clothes horse. So if I could put those things on, even if inside I didn't feel good, I knew that I could get through the day. So that's what really spurred me to do the two things that I love and create a business to give it to others. Yeah. Because I have confidence in both of those sources to help women and men have more pizzazz, and that's where it came from.
So let's take the fitness first then, and things that people might lack confidence around it, things that stop people from getting around it. What would be your top 3 tips for getting from that kind of sense, I know I need to do it, I ought to do it, I want to do it, but I don't have the confidence to do it? What would you say to them?
Yeah. So lots of people worry about other people. In exercise, lots of people worry that they're going to be amongst a load of Barbie dolls, that they're going to be the one that's fatter, more unfit. They're going to be the one that gets out of breath before anyone else. They're going to be the one that can't follow the steps and trips over their feet.
That'll be me.
First of all, people worry about what other people think.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of people worry about other people.
So what would you say to them when they're
so
I would people?
I would say to them, you know, the truth of the matter is, having taught thousands of classes, the truth of the matter is, everybody's watching me. Okay. Everyone's eyes are on me because I'm teaching the class. Nobody has got one iota of interest in looking at anyone else.
No, because they're too busy dealing with their wobbly bits, with their out of breathness, and their fact
exactly.
They can't keep up with the steps.
Exactly. You know, I'm trained in this environment, and obviously I'm trained to look at a lot of people whilst I'm exercising and talking at the same time. That takes quite a lot of skill. So there are very few people that have got even remote interest in looking at anything or the ability.
Yeah.
You know, they're really not interested. And sometimes, you know, people say, oh, I didn't even know she was in the class. Oh, was that person in the class? They haven't got a clue.
No.
So I think my encouragement would be for people to say, do not consider what anybody else thinks, because they're not thinking anything other than getting through the class themselves.
Which aligns with your model for confidence, isn't it? Not comparing yourself to other people and focusing on what you want to get from it. So that's tip number 1 for fitness. What would be tip number 2?
So tip number 2 for fitness is you're going to start from somewhere. Okay, so however you are, if you're listening to this today, however fit you are, okay, you are where you are. And it's a great starting point wherever you are, because the pathway of fitness will always take you to be fitter. So wherever you're starting from, you are going to get fitter.
Yeah.
However, when you test muscles and you start moving a piece of machinery, which your body is, that hasn't been used in that way for some time, you're going to get some creaks and groans. Okay, it's a bit like a mechanical piece of machinery. If it hasn't been used, it's going to be a bit sluggish. Okay, and so I always say to people, wherever you're at now, just start now.
Yeah.
You'll always be fitter, and it's very easy to forget where you've come from.
Yeah, it was only today, because I've been training with Belinda, I think about 9 years, which is really ironic, because I only went to your circuit training because I was coaching you and I wanted to know more about your business. And then when I got there, I just loved the way that you run the class, and it also reconnected me, because I used to do circuits when I was in my 20s, and I'd forgotten how much I loved it, and I got out of connection with that. But definitely my progress chart's over there. I've got 3 weeks of doing 3 1-hour workouts. So I've been doing an hour with you, with half hour here and there before. This is the first time in the 9 years that I've done 3 hours every week for 3 weeks. And oh my gosh, I can feel the difference. I feel so much better. And I don't think I'd managed to do the sort of 2 sessions or 2.5 sessions. I just hadn't pushed that extra, or found that extra commitment to do the extra hour. But I started with doing 1 hour a week. And then then it went to 2 hours a week, and then for other reasons it went back down to an hour. So it's been doing that on and off. And then when the time was right, it's moved. But there is a little bit of me that knows you were telling me this earlier and that I wasn't listening. I know I'm the listening detective, but I'm just the same as everybody else. But the timing was so right in lockdown. It's provided me with that bit of extra time in my diary to do it, and it has made such a difference. So I would just want to really sort of echo that wherever you start is your starting point, and it's good to know that as long as you move forward, as you do things like you say, take action, you won't be there again. And I think the other thing to remember about fitness is you gain it and lose it. It's a constant cycle of life. I remember I used to be a competitive swimmer, and we used to go away on a holiday with family for 2 weeks, and I used to hate it when I came back, because I'd be so far behind on my timings, and it would then take me 4 weeks to regain the fitness that I'd lost for 2 weeks being away. So fitness is something that's always coming and going, isn't it, for all of us?
But you know what, Cheryl, if you can gain fitness, if you can get to a certain level of fitness, even if you take time out, I had a serious accident a few years ago, and nothing to do with exercise. I fell down a flight of stairs. But what I know, and I hadn't appreciated it, what I know is that because of my level of fitness, because of my bone density, because of my flexibility of my body, because I have strong muscles, I was able to sustain that serious injury. And the hospital and everybody said to me, Belinda, not only is your body physically strong, but your mindset is strong. So you have the right determination that when you get moving again, because obviously I was pretty bruised and battered and quite hurt, I would make myself go for a walk every day, because I know, I'm confident in my body. I know that if I get it moving, it will work again.
Yeah. Well, that sort of comes on to the conversation you and I have had time and time again, isn't it? Is that when it comes to fitness, people often don't do it because it hurts. and it's that bit that we talk about in the mindset, is getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. There's that discomfort of using something, whether it's a part of your brain, the thinking you're doing, or the body. If you're using a part you haven't used before, you mentioned it already, it's uncomfortable, but you have to use it over to your body goes, oh, this is how it works, to sort of recondition it. But I'm talking about your accent. I think it's a really good point, and it's something I really want the viewers to be aware of, is that whether it's mental fitness with the work that I do, or whether it's the physical fitness with the work you do, when we take the time to develop those muscles, mental or physically, when things happen, like pandemics, or falling down the stairs, or, you know, in my case, divorce and various other things.
Yeah.
Your body and your mind are stronger, aren't they, if you've got those things already in place? Whereas sadly, some people don't get around to doing it until crisis has hit, and then starting from the starting point, as you just talked about.
Exactly. So tip three for exercise would be that I wrote a blog which was about, are you fit for life? And that doesn't mean, are you, body beautiful? Are you bikini clad? That's not what it's about. But it's about, are you fit for whatever life is going to give to you? And so I believe that we are, you obviously taught me a huge amount to do with my mind and the way I trust and have confidence in what I want in my life. Whereas I'm having trust and confidence in my physical capabilities. What I don't know is what life is going to throw at me or any of you. We don't know that. Okay. But what we do know is that we want to put ourselves in the best place possible to be able to deal with it.
Yeah. So, and for you, obviously fitness plays a big part in that, is to do that. And so if somebody is there on that thing where they're worried about what people are saying, and they don't feel fit, and you're saying, don't worry what people think, you've got to start somewhere. And if I'm understanding that last bit, is think about the future, is kind of actually, this is about setting you up for success for anything that happens in your life. The stronger you are now, the more resilient you're going to be with lots of aspects of your life. And I don't think I know a financially successful person who is working hard who doesn't exercise, because you cannot do it. Your body, well, they might be, but they're not very healthy, and that it's not sustainable, is it? We end up, our body suffers for it. It's a problem there.
There's something about having you can test someone's general level of fitness by their gait, the way they walk.
I wanted to ask you about that, because you mentioned that the other day, Liam and I were
there are tests. There are tests, okay, the way you walk. So if you think about yourself as a frame, you're a framework, and you have a muscular skeletal system. Your muscles and your skeleton are working together, and obviously your nervous system. And the way that you stride, the way that you walk, there are tests that can be done about how fit you are and how generally fit you are. So if you think about this, the stronger, if you had a model, you've built a little model, maybe it's made out of wood or an Airfix model. If it was made of really flimsy plastic and the glue wasn't that great, and the links to put the bits together weren't actually that strong, it's not going to be a particularly robust model.
No.
But if the pieces, i.e. the skeleton, are dense, and the muscles, the elastics or the attachments are strong, and the nervous system that supplies the demand, the power, is good, the contacts are good, then the model is going to move easily, more freely. And if it gets chucked against a wall, it's not going to fall to bits.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's how I see the human body. So when I start working with people, I don't have any hang-ups about people's weight. Okay. I'm not somebody who particularly is interested in weight, but I'm very interested in what your body mechanics are capable of doing.
Yeah.
So if I see someone very hunched over, or I see someone who walks, I often say it looks like you've got a marshmallow in the middle. I don't mean a marshmallow as in it's sticking out. I mean a marshmallow in that it's it's moving up and down. It's concertina in when you walk.
Right.
So that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And so I want to create strong bodies. A strong body does look better. Have you ever heard the saying, you know, she'd look good in a black sack? You hear people say that?
Yeah.
Oh, God, she doesn't need to wear great clothes. She just look good if she's got a bag on her body. Well, the truth of the matter is that if you've got a good frame, if you've had a good coat hanger, good strong coat hanger, you hang anything on it.
Yeah.
It hangs well.
If you've got one of the... Yeah. So I know that, but I think you hold yourself differently. Your demeanour is different anyway. When things hurt and you're hobbling and nothing's right, you kind of just generally your demeanour is different, isn't it, anyway? So
true.
How you hold yourself and how things hold on you, whatever your shape or size is. And the episode before this one, we've had Lisa on talking about colour and so you can learn, because actually when we look in the mirror and don't like how things look, there's a whole load to do with the brain wanting things to be level and symmetric. So of course, if we learn a little bit of those, you can do little tricks to get
absolutely, yeah.
There's things you can do to make it look,
change your clothing.
And that's not because you should be this shape or that side. It's just the brain is a pattern spotting mechanism that wants to balance things out. And so, of course, if it doesn't look asymmetric to it, it kind of like has a wobble. And that's why sometimes when you look at yourself, you don't feel right, but you can't put your finger on it. So if those are watching this episode, obviously do go and watch the other episode and find out what Lisa's tips were there. Now, we normally run for about 25 minutes. We're just running up to the edge of that. But I know you've got some tips about makeup. And I think let's do a quick run on it, but I feel like we ought to do another episode all about makeup on its own, just because I've got a whole load of conversation about that I would like to have with you. But just for sure. Now, anyone that's lacking confidence with makeup and they're doing things with their face or skin, what would be your top 3 tips with them?
Okay, so top 3 tips are: you can learn.
The top number 1, you can learn.
So you can learn. So your face your face is just like the body. There are parts of the face that you will have that are bigger than others, parts that are smaller than others. But if you learn the techniques, you can learn how to create the best version of you through cosmetics. And obviously, you just said you'd had an image consultant who's giving us advice on that, which I'd love to watch. But you can do the same with shading and highlighting on the face.
Yeah.
So learn the skills. Come to somebody like me and learn what to do. People assume that they should know how to do makeup.
Well, if we run over a bit, I'm going to have the conversation with you anyway, because I think it's really important, because I often meet lots of different people who've got mixed feelings about makeup, and like, I don't want to have to make it, I don't like wearing it. And so I went through a little time sort of questioning, why do I wear it? And I remember my mum buying me, I think it wasn't probably Jackie, but it was something like that. I had this binder when I was younger, because she absolutely knew nothing about makeup, but she was determined that I was going to know about it. So she bought me these manuals so I could learn how to do makeup, and each time it came with a different piece. And I know for me, I love it for 2 reasons. I like not wearing it and looking quite, being myself, and I love being out in nature and not having any makeup at all on. But I do like the wow factor, and I do like the feedback I get when I wear it. It does boost me when someone says, oh, that looks lovely. So it is a booster for me personally.
Yeah, sure.
But I've also discovered as well, when I'm feeling fed up and I'm having to put my face on to the last thing I want from people is asking me if I'm tired, or are you okay, or sympathy. So I have to say I also use it for another times when actually I don't want the attention to be on my well-being, because I'm there to deliver a service, or I'm there because I want to forget about whatever that is and be in this moment. So I find makeup from that perspective gives me that booster. So I can use it in different ways, and I've only just now in my 50s, I think, reconnecting with it a bit like my teenager, and with clothes, I'm having a bit of fun going back and doing it. So I really encourage it. And I think that's a big thing about confidence, and a lot of my programs are about, is I do think we forget that we're always having to learn, and we can easily lose our confidence in our ability to learn new things, and we can tell ourselves a story that we can't. And the truth is, we're always learning. and we keep our mind open to that, then everything is possible with the right support. So tip number 1 is learning. You can always learn it. What would be number 2?
Well, number 2, I think, was about, I think that a lot of people say to me things like, oh, I'm too old, or there's no hope for me, or all of those reasons why they tell you that, or my husband prefers me natural. My husband prefers me natural. Oh, I haven't got time for any of that. I haven't got time for that anymore. So I truly believe that we can make good of whatever we have, whatever age we are. I've done makeup for great grandmothers on their granddaughters' weddings. And one of my friends has a lovely, lovely, lovely grandma who sadly is no longer with us. But the photo that she posts of her, every time she posts a picture of her grandma, it's the picture of the day I did her makeup.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it matters how old you are. I don't think it matters whether you've got smile lines, laughter lines, frown lines. I don't think that matters. But remember, you're working with the face you have today.
Yeah.
So you can make good of the face you have today.
And I want to just pick up on that, because I know you really well, that you are really, really not judgmental of anybody. And you said about make good. And for me, there's a little bit of inference that when we're natural, we're not good. And that, I know that's not who you are as a person. That's not how you look and see at people. And I think actually, so I just want to add into this, whether it's the learning and that, is actually the makeup. It doesn't take away your own self-criticism. So if you're going to be critical of yourself, you're going to still be critical of yourself with or without makeup. The makeup is, for me, is a tool. It's something to play with. It's, you have warriors in tribes, don't you, putting face paints on and stuff. It's part of just it's something to do for fun, rather than because I'm not good enough as I am without it. I'm happy to be without my makeup, and I'm happy to be with makeup.
For sure.
But I think the thing that we just a bit about asymmetrics, if you sort of are criticising yourself for having small eyes or a big chin or whatever, what you're saying is you can use the tools of the makeup to change the perspective. I must admit, Paige my daughter had hers the other day. I didn't recognise her. She doesn't like it. She doesn't like wearing makeup. It's not her thing. But she allowed a friend to play. I really didn't recognise her. So it's a really good way of saying that if your happiness is being affected because you're looking in the mirror criticising yourself, makeup is a tool that you can change how you see yourself when you look in the mirror. And I think when you can change that self-talk, I know that both of us would love people just to look in yourself and know that they're gorgeous anyway, and that you don't need the makeup to know that you're lovely. But it can be a tool that means that you start changing the feedback you give yourself when you look at yourself in the mirror.
But I do think it's like clothes, Cheryl. There are clothes. When I teach my exercise classes, I have no makeup on and I'm wearing my training clothes. My hair's tied back. I'm sweating. I'm not exercising to look good at all. Okay, that's not my focus. But just as when if I'm going out for an evening, I wouldn't go out in my exercise clothes. I'm going to put something nicer on. I want to do the same with my face.
I think that's, for me, that's what makeup and clothes, they help me change state. It's always like change it. Otherwise, I feel like and I like change. I've discovered. So it's like, otherwise I feel like I'm just going through. Whereas actually going through that process. The other day we were running the 7-day makeup motive. I think you're on the call, and people were going, "Oh, just come in your pajamas." Well, I did try coming down and I just couldn't do it. My head wasn't there. So actually. And I think it's because of when we're putting the makeup on or we're getting ourselves dressed, it's how we talk about ourselves. But it's also, it's like a ritual. It's a bit like the birthday cakes associated with celebrating birthdays. When you've got those things as a routine, they become a practice way of doing. Your brain then goes, "Oh, we're going out, or we're going to feel good now." So it's a tool, isn't it, from that? And I know you often talk about your pink toolkit. So before we go any further, because we might have known me and you get together, we'd start nattering. So tip number 3, and then we'll call it a close today.
Yeah, so tip number 3 is that, just as you've probably heard in the previous interview with the image consultant, she spoke to you probably about colour, and the colours that enhance you and the colours that can make you look more dull or flatter. I don't know what word she would have used, but it's the same in cosmetics.
Yeah.
So having somebody like me take a look at your face and to give you advice on colours, I'm looking at certain things. I'm looking at your hair colour, your contrast levels, your eye colour, etc., etc. And so therefore I'm going to choose colours for you that you might not ordinarily choose. And every woman that I've ever met has an eyeshadow palette with beige and brown in it. I would ask the question, do we all have beige and brown clothes in our wardrobe? Probably not for most of us, but we all seem to manage to have beige or brown eyeshadow. And I think it's because we like to play safe. So my advice would be, if you speak to somebody who's trained to look at your face and trained to look at your colouring, then they're going to give you an opportunity to try things that you wouldn't normally try.
No.
And you never know, you might be pleasantly surprised.
I have to say, and I really highly recommend it, because I remember the very first time I had my colours done. I mean, we're talking 30 years ago. I mean, I was in my 20s. I did it with my mum. And I remember being told then, because of my skin tone, I think I was wearing bright, like fuchsia pink, and they really said it wasn't the right tone for my skin tone. And they said, you really should try corals. And I remember the first time I put it on, I was like, because my brain wasn't used to seeing it. I was so used to my thing. It took me ages and ages to come to terms with this new colour. And I now generally wear coral. However, what I do like about you, and also about what Lisa says, is at the end of the day, I really did like cerise pink. And even though I've been told by many image consultants I shouldn't wear it, I do think, and going back to the confidence thing, had I had more confidence to believe in myself and trust myself, I probably would have worn the cerise pink anyway, because it wasn't about whether I looked good for other people. I enjoyed wearing the colour. And so I think I've kind of grown out of it. It was a very trendy thing in the 80s, and it was probably more to do with conforming anyway. But it's just interesting when it comes to all of this stuff. What I'm hearing about you is about trusting yourself. You go to experts, they'll guide you on the sort of technical stuff about your skin and tone to make sense of why, when you look in the mirror, you don't like it. Because that's why we go and see people like you, is because we know something's not working, but we can't put our finger on it. But because you've seen the patterns and you know the colours and the tones, whether it's why our shoulder isn't working or whether the eye makeup isn't working, you've got that feedback you can give us. So if people are stuck there with these things, they can get hold of you. Your actual website is pizzazz.me, isn't it? So the link will be in the YouTube channel below. So if you want information from Belinda, because I know she's working virtually, so she can do anything now worldwide. If you want some help with makeup or fitness,
I know, it's been incredible.
So you can join me when I'm in my sweaty heap as well, on the online boot camps and online body toning sessions. I do have recorded here ready for a 30-minute ab workout, so watch this space. But that leads me to say a massive thank you, Belinda, for joining us today on this episode, and I look forward to working out with you shortly.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.